couple of days ago, there's a story that's been circulating in the news and especially on the internet. And they're talking about segregation and Trump removing segregation protections. And people are up in arms about it. I think personally that whatever the hell Trump is doing over there, he's doing a lot. But if he's able to bring back separate drinking fountains and restaurant seating and clubs that you can go to and can't go to. I mean, if he has that ability to bring that back and he's willing to stand up publicly and be the president responsible for that, I'd be a lot more disappointed in this country than I already am. I would think that we move beyond that and that drinking fountains being separated or any of that thing isn't really the purpose of these stories. The actual reason that these stories are circulating in such abundance and they seem to be very popular on the internet is because they're leaning without coming right out and saying it, but toward black people. Segregation and separate drinking fountains, that's you're talking to us. We get it. We understand. But I think it's very just horrible to think that the American media would stoop to that, to saying, hey, they're going to bring back segregation. Ooh, remember Joe Biden? And that's a prime example of the way they think, because even in his lighthearted, humorous moods, you don't say some things. And that one camera shot they got of Joe Biden,
unchain Wall Street. They're gonna put you all back in chains.
With they're gonna have you back in chains. It's like, damn. I mean, really? Is that what you think you should be saying to get our support, to make us like you, scaring us about the other guy? It's starting to feel that way. Like we got a really good friend in the Democrats, and they don't want us to get to know the new people that moved in. They just stay away from them. They are your cousins. They're your friends. That when you guys have Thanksgiving dinner, white people sit down as family members with Democrats and Republicans. It's a political party. It's not your race. It's not. It's. We really need to tone it down, because I think it's horrible to use the history of our existence here and to trigger us and to make us support you guys on your plan. How do we get the blacks involved? Hey, I got it. The other day, Trump rolled back the segregation clauses and all. Although if you sit down and look at it with common sense, it's really all about nothing. There will be no black and white fountains. There will be no separate seating in restaurants. There will be racial injustice when it comes to hiring in the United States, because it always has been. In the government sector, in the private sector, it's always going to exist. And they know it's nothing they can do about it because they don't want to do anything about it. They make all these laws and they make all this ruckus. And instead of anybody being upset that segregation might come back, we should ask ourselves, are we going to do the same thing we did to remove it this time that we did the last time? Is that going to be our playbook? Or are we going to realize, well, apparently we didn't extinguish it. This time we need to sit down and think about it differently and extinguish it completely. Because if we do the same thing we did before, it's going to rear its ugly head again. So we ought to know better than that. That's why I don't like the repetitive nature of our support for the Democrats. It's just like we're running in a circle, and all we keep proving to them is that we're on your team and we want to help. And then they send us out on errands and we do what we do for them. And it's got to stop. It's not making very much sense. But with that, folks, we're going to get into this story. I found it to be quite compelling, but I must also say that we as black people don't have to look at these news stories and live them. We can learn from them. You can look at them and see the other side. You can see what they're trying to hide from you when they're telling you their side of the story, or a story they made up, or with an angle to make a certain group feel a certain way. I kind of got a lot of that from this story. Here we go.
A change by the Trump administration is it's having a decades-old ripple effect. The federal government no longer explicitly prohibits contractors from having segregated restaurants, waiting rooms, and drinking fountains.
Yeah, the segregation clause is one of several identified in a public memo issued by the General Services Admission last month, affecting all civil federal agencies. Legal experts say this change to contracts to across all the federal government is significant.
All right, we're bringing back in our legal expert, Khalif Rhodes. So let's talk about what is the language.
I had to bring in a subject matter expert on segregation. This is our subject matter expert, and he's here to help them by solidifying what they've already thrown out there with no basis, and he's about to get behind it and appear to try to sell it to whoever is willing to buy it. And I just want us to be sharper than that. I want us to be on top of our game and not allow them to keep bringing up things that we supposedly defeated or dealt with decades ago. Unfortunately, here it is showing that our friends, the Democrats, are not well intentioned when it comes to us truly living like American citizens, like everyone else. They want us to always have this uphill battle and this fight going on so that we can never be completely comfortable. We can never completely prosper, and we can never develop anything because we're always in transition. We're in a fluid motion, and that doesn't make any sense. We should be as stable in this country as everybody else. With the land, same land opportunity. By the time we ever get any opportunity at any land, it ain't going to be worth having. We may not even want it, and it'll probably be in a worse area it could possibly be in. Back then, you probably could have given us some pretty bad land, and we would have turned it into gold. But nowadays, shit, with the pollution and the things we got to deal with, how are we going to dig ourselves out of this if we allow you guys to continue to do the propaganda, the rhetoric, the lying, and all for what? So you can have our support. You already got our support. Now show us what you're going to do so we don't have to worry about segregation coming back. Because if it's a problem, and Joe Biden, our former president, even remarks about things coming back, slavery, to think that he would even bring that up. And then you got people in his era, in his cabinet, in his circle, in his life, who believe that black people don't deserve anything because it happened such a long time ago. And if that's true, and you got a president of the United States making comments like that just 4 years ago, 5 years ago, then yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we move far enough. And this is the president who we love. This is the black people's president, the Democrats' president. This is the one we support, making comments like that, and we got over it. Trump hasn't said no shit like that. And Trump, in my personal opinion, has not been very good across the board coming in. I don't feel it as a target on black people specifically, but I do believe across the board, whatever he's doing is going to change some things. But for him to have been such a big contributor to the deficit in his last term, someone woke him up, someone appealed to him, someone talked to him and made him reverse course and be like, whoa, and the Democrats don't believe it. They're like, no, he's still giving tax breaks to his billionaire friends and buddies. But in the last election, it was the Democrats who had the capital, who had the resources and the money. So, sometimes when people say things, I think they're just kind of like, rather than accept the responsibility, even if it's not full responsibility, just for what part of it they played. The Democrats aren't at that level yet, and it's very disheartening because a lot of people who we all care about are Democrats. That's why we have the Black Popcorn community growing, because we have to get our friends enlightened. We have to talk to them and hug them and not treat them bad like a lot of Democrats tend to treat people. If they find out you don't agree with them, they want to get you in a pile of them and one or two of you and make you feel out of touch, like you don't understand what's going on in the real world out there. You do, just like they do. I'm not discounting their perception of what they are seeing or feeling or what's going on in their lives, because if it causes them to vote Democrat and they're satisfied with their vote, there's nothing you can do about that at all. But if somebody is being tricked out of their vote, and you can do something to enlighten them and help them out and make them look at some of these situations that lead up to voting the wrong person in the White House a little differently, then yeah, that's what I'm behind. I'm for that.
Here that is in this FAR, this FAR, the Federal Acquisitions Regulation, that these agencies use when they're writing contracts for their federal contractors. Why is this so symbolic?
Well, let's go back a couple steps if we can. In another lifetime, I worked as a government contracting solicitation company, or I should say bidding company. Did that for a number of years, bid on a lot of things, from toilet paper to defense contracts. And what I can tell you as far as control, they are what you look for when you're looking at participating in a bid. The very first thing you do is you flip to the FAR and see, well, hey, do I meet these requirements? These FARs are extremely important.
And that's the problem that we run into as black people. When we go and fill out the form, when we go out and apply for the job, when we go and try to get something that is rightfully being given to everyone else, we are met with, you don't qualify, or you're turned away for some other reason that is justifiable, only because you can't get inside a person's heart. You can't get inside a person's head and understand why you were declined, understand why you weren't approved, or why you weren't let in. I mean, those are the things that it's human nature, and it's only things that can get better if the government got better, if our leaders got better, if they weren't so tribal, if Jasmine Crockett and Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't have this black girl, white girl thing going on. It looks so racially divided, more than the society really is, because most people live where they're comfortable. And if you ain't comfortable around a particular race of people, you probably not going to live around them. So for the most part, the country goes to the store together. We go to parks together. We go to sporting events together. But our leadership with this kind of stuff and our propagandic media will keep us at each other's neck with that kind of talk. And what should be discussed in this interview is, what do black people need to do if Donald Trump is making an attempt at their civil rights, or their ability to share water fountains with white people, or whatever it is he's trying to strip away from us. We need to have a clear understanding that ain't the way we're going this time. We're not going to do a non-peaceful march. We're not going to be out in the streets wasting our time. We're going to figure out a different way and go forward with it, and get some bright minds together, hash some things out. And it doesn't take rocket scientists. It just takes determination and organization, and it can be done. But nobody wants to do it because it's not something that makes our white friends comfortable. When black people start wanting to be equal or wanting to gain economically, then they don't really feel comfortable, and they think that you're tripping. You're way out there with those kind of thoughts. Like, geez, of course the mainstream media and the American population in general isn't going to be on board with that, because only 13% of that population is of African slave descent. So, so what do you expect? I mean, you don't expect them to be jumping up and down to pay a debt, to feel a feeling, and to deal with a situation that happened that hasn't been dealt with properly by this country. It's been dealt with violently. It's been dealt with resentment. It's been dealt with prejudice, but it hasn't been dealt with education. And by him moving the Department of Education down to the state levels, I'm hopeful. They weren't doing it right at the federal level. I'm not going to fight for anybody to take that school district head leadership guidance role and put it back up to the federal government. I wouldn't support that ever.
important. If you fail to meet one of these, you're not even going to get an opportunity to be considered, let alone win a bid. And so FARs are extremely important. These aren't just recommendations or little sticky notes that they put there. They control the bidding and contracting process. And so this language here, I've read the memorandum that was sent out by the director, and the very first thing says ending illegal discrimination and restoring merit-based opportunities. So even within that language, there's a lot of dog whistle within here. But if you look at some of the things,
it's a lot of dog whistles in there. These are laws and shit that he's talking about. Then there's dog whistles in the Constitution then. I mean, we are still following a Constitution that enslaved us with some amendments in here and there. But I'm telling you, it obviously hadn't been addressed appropriately, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. Why are we talking about a potential that anything Donald Trump can do can divide the country to the point of where government contracts, well, they know most government contracts are given to white people, and they do the hiring for those government contracts. So they're telling you, we're going to give you these contracts, but you got to hire some of these people who don't qualify to get the job, the contracts you got, but they do qualify to work for you. You got to let them work for you. You got to, you know what I mean? Let us qualify for the contracts. So we don't have to worry about nobody discriminating against us. And if we don't qualify for the contract, then that means we're being discriminated against by the American United States government. That's going to be a problem. Somebody's going to have to, stop, relent, and allow us that opportunity. And feel okay about it. It's not a competition. It's not a competition. It's a team effort. We're a whole country. Everybody's on the same team. The better you do, the better your street looks, the better your house is, the better car you drive. It just helps the whole country. It helps everybody out. It's a wonderful place to live. People are sneaking into this country left and right to be here. So it's a wonderful place to be. But we need the opportunity to be a step above the newly arriving immigrants. We as a people need to be moved up a couple of notches so that we can enjoy some of the country that we did help a little bit to build. Let us enjoy some of it. It's only right.
Things that they removed, talking about removing the equal opportunity. I mean, I can agree that a number of the things that are listed in these FARs are duplicative. And that's what he mentions in here, that it's duplicative. Why? Because it's
yeah, well, anything that you're duplicating is a problem. Because, the first time it didn't work right. Why would you have to double or do they do that kind of stuff to make us feel like your rights are safe? We're double safing them. Or we're gonna make 3 laws for that one thing. We don't want that shit. Just make one law and enforce it. And don't let people like Donald Trump be able to come in and roll it back with an ink pen, because you guys are so terrible that the country is right now unprotected. In the Democrats' basic opinion, the country's unprotected. We're all like at the behest of whatever Donald Trump plans to do. And the Democrats are standing over there telling us, defeated soldiers, to go back out there and just sustain a few more wounds. Just go out there and take one for the team. Get on out there and fight on with no direction, with no guidance, with no real plan. Just keep fighting. They're going to burn everybody out. There ain't going to be no Democratic Party. It's a terrible thing to watch and to be a part of and to see in real time.
By the Civil Rights Act 1964. So because you have that in there, yes, the protections, that safeguard, that safety net, even if so.
What is this? I just get so damn tired of hearing about this Civil Rights Act of 1964. Why didn't we have one in 74 and another one again in 84 and another one again in 94? And they all address different things. And right now, speaking of different things, how come Donald Trump and them are so focused on the economic condition of this country, which makes perfect sense. I'm not arguing with that. But why aren't we? Why aren't black people thinking at this moment, maybe if we had our money right, maybe if we had everything in the right place economically as a people, then maybe we wouldn't care if they built separate drinking fountains, because ours would probably be nicer. And they would probably be like, we don't care who can drink out of that one. We want to drink out of yours. And it wouldn't even be an issue. No one would care. But we have to put ourselves in a place where we are not the ones, every time something that has been going on back in the Flintstone days comes back, we got to be the ones running scared and hiding, and everybody else is looking around like, what's segregation, mommy? What's segregation? But black kids know. Oh, separate drinking fountains. That are, it's almost like they're intentionally teaching us the parts of history that make us triggered or scared or upset us, but they don't want their kids upset with that kind of teaching. There's no need for that. And truly, if they insulate them the way they do in this country in some cases, yeah, it ain't no need for that shit. All you have to do is put your kids in a place where they'll never be privy to that kind of closeness, living out in the wild like that. You keep them insulated and safe. And some people have the resources to do that kind of stuff, and some people don't.
Someone didn't have these FARs, it would still be that protection there. But the duplicative portion, these FARs will go deeper than that. This is saying I can't discriminate. This is in the Civil Rights Act saying I can't discriminate on you based on race, on gender, on these protected classes. But this is telling you exactly how you cannot discriminate against those people. It's going a step further than that. It's saying, okay, if the Civil Rights Act of '64 is the baseline, this is giving a heightened level of protection to ensure that these contractors know exactly what discrimination looks like and how you cannot and should not discriminate against these certain folks. So while I agree it's duplicative in its base, it adds that extra layer of protection to ensure that discrimination would not continue to happen, specifically in these places where government contracting had a rampant run of discrimination, or you wouldn't have had them there.
If a government contractor has a rampant run of discrimination, why are they a government contractor? Why haven't these things been identified and dealt with? Why isn't there and that's why everybody was saying, oh no, Trump is coming in and tearing apart all this stuff that's been working so well. How well has it been working? How well has it been working? The inspector generals. Remember when he got rid of them? I think that was the first round of swinging. Then everybody's like, oh no, without them. Well, if the attorney generals are doing their job, what is he talking about? Wouldn't they be the ones who get in there and find out this contractor is rotten? This contractor is racist. This contractor is taking the government's money and not hiring minorities. Just like we didn't give the contract to a black person. We can at least hire. That's what it's come to. And now this guy is saying basically, what is he saying?
I'm going to play both sides right there, saying that there are protections that are still in place even when you've removed this there. But what people are talking about is a precedent that this could set and what could come next. That's what people are worried about.
Well, I think
that's it. If they don't get you with the Civil Rights Act of 1964, they'll just go back to a decade or 5 years before that when they were physically lynching blacks. And then if that don't get you, they can just keep going back through our history and scaring the shit out of you. Why should they have to do that? Why can't their story be compelling enough for us to participate without them always inflicting harm on us? And I mean it. When you trigger people, when you continue to bring up those things, I think it causes us to fight less because it reminds us of where we come from and how afraid our ancestors must have been to live through those times, and how poor and not in control of their lives. And we shouldn't allow that to happen to us by manipulation. And we need to call it out so they'll stop doing it. We just play along with it, and they call this black dude up, and he shows up, and they give him the quick brief, and you're going to be a subject matter expert for this topic. And he's like, okay, he's thumbing through his little catalog. Okay, he got it. And he get up there and he got his little spiel that he put out there. But it isn't helping us to allow our friendly party, the Democrats, to do this kind of stuff. The friendly networks to do this kind of stuff to us, to make us feel like we're under the gun and nobody else is. It's a little, but it's true that we do feel more heat, that we do get less of the good shit. But when everybody's out and open about it, but not willing to do nothing about it, those are the people we need to quit dealing with. Because they're letting you know, well, we know you got a problem. Oh, we know it could just snap at any moment and you can be back in segregation. You can be back in, and you're like, whoa. For them to say that and have this man on the spot, not only as a expert on this subject, but also as a black man. And they're just, doing their little thing, talking about it and scaring or using him to help scare all the rest of us. I think that's just a low point in our history when they have to do that kind of stuff. I mean, black people trying to fight and do the right thing and be on the right team, participate, lock arms, all that stuff. But it doesn't get us anywhere. They just motivate us by replaying scary movies. And then once they got us whipped up, then they tell us the real plan.
President has already tipped his hand to exactly what's the attempt to do. I mean, the attack on anything that's DEI, the erasure and removal of any of that that's touching any government infrastructure. I mean, you had the thing with Jackie Robinson that was taken down recently. You had anywhere where there's a mention of the diversity, equity, or inclusion, that's being all scrubbed from any government facilities. The government, or I should say the president and his administration, is attempting to even get in the private sector, give increases and bonuses in those places for companies that remove that from their practices. And so,
yeah, that's cold shit right there. If you remove the DEI practices, but I think it's unfair because the DEI practices really, really do have a good intent. They're very well intended, without a doubt. But it's just how they're implemented and how these crooked people get involved in these programs and hire all their friends and family members or get in there with the hat of the United States government and discriminating against people. Folks sitting across from you and you're interviewing them and you're not giving them the job because you don't want to see them in the office with you every day. You don't know if you can tolerate that. It might not make you feel comfortable. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we have to deal with. So we don't get the job and we end up having to take a lesser job or go do something else because starting a business isn't usually an option for black people. We don't get so frustrated in our job search that we just go and start a business. We get frustrated in our job search and then we get more frustrated and we just have to figure it out because the opportunities aren't there. And, not to knock anything, but real nice, as long as we've been in real nice established businesses that have been handed down for a few generations should be something that we're dealing with as black people. There are so many other races of folks. Some people are 3 or 4 generations in and they have businesses that first or second generation started and they're passing it on down. There's no reason. It has to be a clear explanation, and it is that white people in the United States of America are willing to hear and make it the public statement, and whatever it gotta be. But the education has to go out so that we can turn the corner and make change and quit bringing up news stories about things that happened in the 50s and the 60s. And we should be beyond that. We should have reconciled that. And the only reason it keeps coming up, it's an admittance that it was never reconciled. That's someone telling you that something wasn't done right. If that was taken care of back when it should have been taken care of, we wouldn't be talking about it right now. It would have been dealt with appropriately and it would have been over with. Nothing else to talk about, nothing to see here.
I think the next step is to do this push for any type of discrimination, or I should say anti-discrimination efforts, is to remove it. And this is just one step. And this is not something new. He talked about it when he campaigned. He talked about it on his first day in inauguration. And every executive order that he's done so far has been in efforts of furthering that. And so what's next is the continuation of removing anything that's connected to this diversity, equity, and inclusion piece.
How long before we see the trickle-down effect, even to like the state level?
I think this probably won't touch on the state level as far. I mean, a lot of these things on the state levels will mirror what the federal government does, and those same protections from the Civil Rights Act would.
He's absolutely right to mirror exactly what the government do. They discriminate, the states will discriminate. It's a high roll. And it's going to be a lot of that. It is. And without a doubt. It's going to be a lot of that racist. It's going to be as much as it's been, but it's going to be a tone, and not necessarily the intensity, but the tone is going to be different. It's going to be a little different than what the federal government does. The federal government is a little different with their racism, and they usually end up putting their ability to discriminate in someone else's hand and letting them do it, like these contractors and whatnot, with our taxpayer dollars. You pay taxes, you go apply for a job you're totally qualified for, and some dude don't like the way you look for whatever reason and don't hire you. And every black person who don't get a job, it's not because you're not qualified. I mean, because you're overqualified and they just don't like you because you're black. It has nothing to do with that in some cases, but it's a significant enough amount that something needs to be done about it. And I don't know the answer other than giving black people the opportunity to move up economically, and then there'll be less stories like this. I mean, when you are begging for everything, either handouts from the government or a job from Asian people, white people, Hispanic people, when you're put in that position, it's not a real good thing. Your prospects don't look too good, you know. You're looking around like Jesus Christ, So your economic opportunities have to be opened up and not stifled and not blocked and not intentionally cut off and rejected and held down, all that. We just need to accept the fact that whatever we did to get us to this point, thank God we're here first. Let's not be ungrateful. But then from this year on, there's no looking back, and there's no same plan. The Democratic Party should get used to dealing with the new black people differently than what they were doing with Maxine Waters and all of them. We're not going to do that. We ain't going to stand around like a choir while they put some white man out at the mic and he's speaking. No, we don't need to do that. We need to really move forward, and we need to move forward in a way that once we have conquered these obstacles, they don't keep representing themselves again and again and again and again. That doesn't make any sense. That means you didn't fix anything.
Still be there even on the state level, but in the contracting space, this is a major move specifically because I'll say this quickly.
Yeah.
Normally a rulemaking process like this, you'd have a 60-day or a 30-day notice where I'd have an opportunity to speak. The public will give comment. None of that happened in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, we're making this change today because we can, and we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. And should note that the Jackie Robinson site was put back up after initially being taken down, but a series of pages on the Department of Defense website have been taken down and have not since been restored. Again, our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes, joining us for that.
Yeah, I tell you what, Trump need to keep doing what he's doing. It's working. He got Congress rolling with him. I wouldn't slow down. I wouldn't hesitate. I would just keep it pushing because he got Congress rolling with him. Whether you agree with all he's doing, whether I even agree with it, as a politician, he's doing what he needs to be doing, and that's rolling out his plan, implementing his plan, and making it happen. With the support of his majority, you get a supermajority, you got to get them people in a room and have a talk with them and let them know it's war. I did not campaign for the last 4 years to be the president of the United States for a couple of senators to mess up my plan, because they want to be little prima donnas, or they want to. If you want to plan and you want to direct this country, run for president. That's what I tell them. Other than that, you shut up and vote with your party. And people are like, well, yeah. Well, if you want to be a person who stands up in these United States and votes with your heart, or votes with your district, or votes however the hell you probably really should be voting, you won't last long. So this democracy is kind of it's kind of quirky. You got to really be like ready to think on the move with it, because just in the last 2 months, look what we have had to adapt to, as opposed to what we've been used to our whole lives, which lets you know that there is room for change and there is opportunity for it. And we just have to kind of stick ourselves out there and make it happen. Go sit down with Trump and see if he's willing to. I even hear that the Republican Party is willing to start reaching out to black people and other groups that they historically hadn't been getting, because I think they're trying to solidify their position on top and stay there for a minute and maybe change the country as they see it fit. And if the Democrats want to do, we got to do that in an election if we want to slow it down. But as far as sending us out in the street, that ain't going to work. We need to be at home, comfortable, eating dinner with our family, safe, sleeping early at night so we can get up and go to work the next day or whatever we need to do. But we do not need to be out there in the streets. Hell no. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Appreciate the support, and we'll see you on the next Black Popcorn. If you made it this far, then hopefully you enjoyed the video. I really would appreciate and do appreciate the support. Hit the subscribe button, and thank you for being a part of the Black Popcorn community.